areas that are not really that potent for you to put your money in. So if you look at the data that we have from Treasury, and you have to go all the way back to 2016, those loans have dropped to 6.83 billion from 7.5 billion a year ago, and 3 billion, that's in terms of US dollars, and at 2016. So you're sort of thinking that's not a big drop. It's a big drop, especially when you're saying that 1 billion essentially in government borrowing is a lot of money. So let's look at exactly where we are. If you look at what the IMF has done, and this is China reacting to the credit risk of these countries, it is saying that it has listed 20 countries, Kenya included in that list of 20 countries, as being in a high risk of debt distress. Interesting when you look at it. So that is the China Exim Bank and the China Development Bank and the China's two main policy banks. They have now adopted an increasingly hard line in terms of lending terms. So that's where we are. And if you remember, in 2020, when we're trying to negotiate moratoriums from China, they are actually quite tough on us. They say, you got to give us back our money or we'll stop lending to your country. So these are some of the tell signs that you're looking at and then trying to understand where this particular headline is coming from. So if you go back again to what IMF findings have found, it will show you that African countries received 42% of all Chinese official development assistance between 2000 and 2017. That's huge. That's almost 50%. And then they keep on saying that China's influence on Kenya's mega project started gathering steam with the construction of the Thika superhighway between 2009 and 2012 that had cost the country nearly 32 billion. And that was during the last term of a former retired President Mwai Kibaki. Now, let's understand exactly how China's debt grew. It grew by 4.55% in each of the two financial years from 2021 before dropping last year to 3.2%. It then grew 49% to 4.6 billion in the year ended June 2017. Fine. But then the devil, as they say, is in the details, because even as we're talking about debt dropping, the interest in repayments, by the way, those are the ones that we're talking about. Because if we look at where we are all the way to June 2021, on SGR alone, we are paying 24.7 billion in interest repayments. That's not even on the principal amount, as where rubber meets the road. It is Monday. Thank you very much for taking your time to join us right here on Lookupbusiness. My name is Simba Kiage. We do have a lot for you today on this particular episode. Join us online at Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. I am Kiage Simba. Let's cross over to the newsroom so that we can get to see some of the biggest business headlines that you're pushing your Monday with. Now, the Kenya Bureau of Standards (KEBS) unveiled 474 standards that are market-based and industry-driven to ensure local market meets international standards. KEBS is optimistic that the launched standards will ensure goods and services produced locally will now be able to command good prices.
Well, the 474 standards will touch on the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, with keen focus on establishing smart cities for sustainable communities, affordable and clean energy, as well as zero hunger. Speaking during KEBS Emerging Standards Forum under the World Standards Day, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and Enterprise Development, Betty Maina, reiterated the government's support of the new KEBS by strengthening the country's manufacturing and production sector.
Standards development is really part and parcel of growing and growing ourselves, and especially in the delivery of the global, the SDGs. I am glad as a country we celebrate World Standards Day and remind ourselves every time that we are joining the rest of the world in this journey.
With Kenya's manufacturing sector always reeling from the high cost of production, the managing director, KEBS, insisted standards set are to reduce cost of production brought about by substandard products missing in the market.
Standards are not necessary for the rich countries. Standards really help to reduce cost if you look at them critically. And there's a model that is called the cost of poor quality, where if you don't comply to standard, because standards are created by a team of experts that agree on the optimum, requirement in terms of the parameters, so that you don't make something that is going, let's say, not to last long enough, or to under exposure of some stress or even sunlight.
Today we are unveiling 474 standards, and all these standards are aligned to the Sustainable Development Goals. As we develop these standards, we develop them based on the National Standardization Plan, which is market-based driven. We get this request from the industry, from all the stakeholders, and then we come up with a National Standardization Plan from where every standard that we develop is market-driven, and it is requested by the market.
For Lookupbusiness, Sandrine Mwenda.
Moving on, Unity Homes, the leading affordable housing developer in Kenya, has handed over keys to another 64 new homes in a Tatu city in Kiambu County. Unity East, a 5.4 billion shillings investment, is on track to complete 640 apartments amid rapid uptake by buyers. This comes on the back of the real estate sector in the country experiencing an uptick in the affordable housing space.
In support of the government's agenda to build more affordable houses to fight the ever-increasing house deficit, Unity Homes has come up with 10.4 acres property made up of 2, 3 and 4 bedroom apartments. Speaking during the handover ceremony, the executive director of Unity Homes, Jason Housey, has said that Unity East is targeting both investors and homeowners, especially high-quality homes that ensure attractive capital gains and returns for investors.
I think if you look at the concentration of wealth, not even just in Kenya alone, but in the whole of East Africa, wealth is very confined to Nairobi. So we could do a lot of projects in and around the suburbs of Nairobi before we venture out. In terms of what's coming up, as I said, I feel like as a business, we're just getting started. The business has grown actually quicker than we expected, and I think we're still at the very early stages of our evolution as a business, and this is extremely exciting for us. So I'd say stay tuned and watch out for what we have coming up.
On her part, head of sales at Unity Homes, Azmina Taima, said with the successful occupancy rates with their previous developments, they are optimistic that Unity East will also achieve 100% occupancy.
We've got a lot of investors on board who have been tagging along since Eldoret. That was our first project in 2015. They've bought in Eldoret, they came and bought in Unity West, which was the second project, and now they've come along in Unity East, and we are super grateful for them to be coming on board all the time. We've got investors, we've got first-time home buyers, because of the affordable price. Small families, people who want to come and live here. We've also ventured into the diaspora market. And we have almost in Unity East development, almost 45% of our clients are the diaspora. So yes, we are very grateful for that.
The units, which are priced between 7.65 million for cash buyers and 8.85 million for investors who choose the flexible 24-month payment plan for mortgage financing. Edwin John Mokora, Lookupbusiness.
The Family Group Foundation and the USAID Tumikia Toto project, implemented by World Vision Kenya, held a graduation ceremony for 100 young women. The program has already seen nearly 300 women trained and certified in plumbing, electrical and painting skills. Speaking at the graduation ceremony, Family Bank Group Chief Executive Officer Rebecca Mbethe underscored the importance of having more women take on sectors and industries that have been dominated by men. She also expressed confidence in the program that has so far seen over 80% of the women who have been through it score internships and jobs.
We have trained nearly 400 girls through a Kenya shillings 30 million investment in technical skills such as construction, plumbing and painting. I'm delighted to note that 80% of these young women and girls have transitioned into internships and decent work in a sector that was previously male-dominated. We are not only providing technical and vocational skills, we are also providing reproductive health information, services, financial planning, so that our focus can be an overall improvement of the livelihoods of these young ladies.
Chief guest Dr. Patrick Njoroge took time to encourage women in the country to change their attitude and stop identifying as marginalized in the society so as to compete with the rest of Kenyans for the opportunities.
Have a positive attitude about these things. Positive attitude. Don't look at it as the end of the world because something bad has happened to you. All of you, of course, know this. All of us have our own difficulties that we had to overcome. And here you are. The program directors, when they were explaining it to me, they told me that most of you are sort of in a vulnerable group or you came from a vulnerable background. That is okay. It doesn't characterize you. You're not going to be like that all your life. You overcome it. We all had our difficulties. You got yours, I got mine, and we have to look to face it. So don't let difficulties define you.
John Conley, International Development Health, Population and Nutritional Director, congratulated the graduates and reaffirmed the United States government's support to women empowerment programs, adding that young girls and women in Kenya hold unlimited potential as they constitute more than half of the productive population.
Young girls and women in Kenya hold unlimited potential. They constitute more than half of the population, of the productive population, and can make major contributions towards Kenya's development. This skills training program is an excellent example of one of those economic power empowerment initiatives under DREAMS that aims at providing critical financial income to young women. Such programs as these not only build foundational skills, but also transferable skills such as self-confidence, communication, and decision-making. These skills are critical for young women to find work, become entrepreneurs, and access further training and learning. A recent World Bank study found that vocational training for vulnerable youth in Kenya improved young women's incomes by 132%.
For Lookupbusiness, Simba Kiage. Economists in the country now say that Kenya has the potential to double its per capita growth in the next decade and reduce poverty levels by giving a special focus on education, electricity and fertility rates. This is according to global economist and author Charlie Robertson in his new book dubbed The Time-Traveling Economist. Edwin John Mukora picks notes about Kenya's economy from his launch.
Recent data from the World Bank shows that Kenya's current GDP per capita stood at $206.8 as of December 2021, which is about 75% to 85% lower than that of Mauritius and Seychelles. The two countries have higher literacy levels of up to 98% as compared to Kenya's 88%.
If you've got 70 to 80% adult literacy, that's enough to industrialize. But, you know, even Cuba's Castro went out and said, that's not enough, let's do 100%. Korea, 100%. So there's an argument of going to the rural villages and trying to just improve literacy for every villager, however unimportant they may think it is. It still has a positive effect. So adult literacy campaigns is a good idea.
In his keynote address, Charlie Robertson has said that for the country to take off, the population must attain high literacy levels, must have electricity before they can power industries, and have savings to pay for the essential amenities, adding that for the country to develop fast, more focus has to be given to literacy.
The answer in the book, which is to say you've got to be educated, you've got to be literate before you can take off, you've got to have electricity before you can power factories, and you've got to have savings in your country to be able to pay for that electricity and to pay for the roads and the ports and everything else that a country needs to take off. And that seems, surprisingly to many, linked to fertility rates. And China's a dramatic example that when they cut their fertility too harshly in my view, but when they cut it very fast, their growth picked up very fast because their savings went up very fast. And in fact, we see that in every country around the world.
Tattoo City Executive Vice President Solomon Mahinda has said that setting up the right foundation in terms of planning and regulatory environment will help to make the cost of electricity bearable, especially for manufacturers and investors coming up to set large industries corporations.
From where we come from is how do we make the cost of electricity a bit more bearable, especially for manufacturers or for investors who are coming to set up large industrial operations in this part of the world. That has been a big limiting factor. That has been an issue that really discourages a lot of big industries to set up shop here. And I'm quite, it was very, very refreshing to see the CS designate, Mr. Chilchir, who's been nominated for CS Energy, actually address that issue and actually come out very clearly that the cost of electricity is something that they are going to, this new administration is going to address and address it quickly.
Edwin John Mokora, Lookupbusiness.
Edwin John Mokora with that story. Now, a 2-month campaign has started following the partnership between Safaricom and YouTube to promote YouTube Shorts aimed at encouraging young content creators to create content through affordable 1 GB data for as low as 10 shillings. Lisa Maina with the details.
Safaricom has partnered with YouTube to promote and grow short video content, YouTube Shorts, by offering low-cost bundles for its users. The 2-month campaign will see Safaricom users enjoy 1 GB data for 10 Kenya shillings to view and post content on their YouTube channels with the aim to nurture and encourage a streaming habit to all Kenyans.
So we've partnered with Google because they're the ones who have all the major apps on your phones. And we want to bring for you something we're calling YouTube Shorts. Then tumewasikia mkatuambia we are a little bit expensive. Can we give you a cheaper offer?
Ndo hiyo sasa.
So offer yetu ni how much? Ni 10 bob. Only 10 bob. And you get how much? 1 gig. 1 GB of YouTube for 10 bob.
To purchase the bundles, Safaricom customers will dial *544# and select option 0. Whether the affordable bundles will encourage content creation is a matter to be seen. Lisa Maina, Lookupbusiness.
Well, Lisa Maina with that story then. 1 GB for 10 shillings. How long does it last? If you're creating shots? Good initiative though. All right. We take a short break right here on Lookupbusiness. Once we come back, we're going to be looking at exactly how the markets are trending right now.
Yippee! Kamata plotting at 349K. Oh yes, for only 349,000 Kenyan shillings, you become a plot owner at the Great Oasis Gardens, Nanyuki. The Great Oasis Gardens, Nanyuki is located along the Nanyuki-Rumuruti Road, only 11 minutes from the Cedar Mall and right opposite Mount Kenya Wildlife Estate. This is the best place to establish the getaway home that you have always dreamt about. For every 349,000 that you deposit or pay as installment towards any of Optiven's plot of land, you get 10K cash back instantly. Jaza basi twende Nanyuki. Bigger is indeed better.
Born a man, the society bestows tough responsibilities upon you.
Lazima uwe mtu wa bidii, ukija kuoa lazima uwe ni provider.
If you're not able to provide, that's a challenge. It takes a toll on a man.
It takes someone who is strong enough to face it.
This is Born a Man.
Vera Beauty and Fashion College is focused on being the leading technical and vocational training institute in the region. Our team possesses in-depth knowledge and extensive experience in the industry, offering thorough training in cosmetology, hairdressing, interior design, creative arts, training of trainers, nail technology, and fashion design. With branches in Nairobi, Thika, Meru, Eldoret, and now in Mombasa, our courses ensure that learners are completely equipped with knowledge, competency, and employability skills. Enroll today to be a part of a center of excellence.
All right, welcome back to Lookupbusiness. Let's now quickly jump into how the markets look at this particular hour. Remember, it's been 2 hours and 27 minutes of trading. Let's check this data then in real time and see exactly how we've opened this morning after those 2 hours. Let's first start with what have been our top gainers this morning. We're going to look at our top 5 in as much as our stocks are concerned, and indeed we do have them. And we're going to start with East African Cables Limited, and you can actually see exactly what they're doing right now, because you can get that particular share right now if you're to buy in at 1 shilling and 15 cents. That is current trading. Going by how they closed Friday, that will be 8.49% change. And then we do have Olympia also coming in as well. That is Olympia Capital Holdings Limited coming in at position 2 at 2 shillings and 65 cents, going by 6% change from where they closed in at last week Friday. And then we do have Uchumi there at 28 cents. That is 3.7%. from where they were last week Friday, and KCB now is closing in that particular top gainers list at just 37 shillings and 50 cents. That representing 2 shillings and 60 cents gain, and actually percentage gain. And you can actually see that those numbers are also changing in real time as well, as we talk about right now, because then indeed we do have those with NCBA also coming in that actually now at 31 shillings. So NMG getting knocked out of that particular list as well. Let's cross over to the next indicator right now, real time, by the way. Look at what were the top 5 losers then at this particular hour. 2 hours and 29 minutes of trading, ever ready at 68 cents. That representing 4 shillings, and that's 4.23% change. And we do have the BK Group PLC. Now that's the Bank of Kigali. If you do know, that is a Rwandan-based financial services company that operates via 3 segments of retail banking, corporate banking, and the central treasury. They're coming in now at 30 shillings per share. They're representing negative 3.23% change. And then after that, we do have Britain, by the way, also coming in here. It's not a surprise that we have the insurance stocks here, because we do know that these particular ones are quite hot and cold, coming at 6 shillings change. That is a low, by the way. If you go by Britain numbers, they could be doing at 9-10 shillings right now. So a single digit there is not really good for them. And then we do have Fahari also coming in to close in that top 5 biggest losers. That's Stanley Fahari, and you do know this is the latest then to be listed on this particular exchange in 2015, to be specific, coming in at 6 shillings and 30 cents, representing 3.08% change. If you want to look at where the rest of them are, Centum is also here at 9 shillings. NSC is also here at 7 shillings and 30 cents. That in totality is exactly how these particular numbers look this morning in as far as the 2 hours and 30 minutes of trading are concerned. Guess what? It's 11:30 a.m. We take a short break. Once we come back, Lookupbusiness continues.
Yippee! Kamata plotting at 349k. Oh yes, for only 349,000 Kenyan shillings, you become a plot owner at the Great Oasis Gardens, Nanyuki. The Great Oasis Gardens, Nanyuki is located along the Nanyuki-Rumuruti Road, only 11 minutes from the City Mall and right opposite Mount Kenya Wildlife Estate. This is the best place to establish the getaway home that you have always dreamt about. For every 349,000 that you deposit or pay as installment towards any of Optiven's plot of land, you get 10k cash back instantly. Jaza basi twende Nanyuki. Bigger is indeed better.
Vera Beauty and Fashion College is focused on being the leading technical and vocational training institute in the region. Our team possesses in-depth knowledge and extensive experience in the industry, offering thorough training in cosmetology, hairdressing, interior design, creative arts, training of trainers, nail technology, and fashion design. With branches in Nairobi, Thika, Meru, Eldoret, and now in Mombasa, our courses ensure that learners are completely equipped with knowledge, competency, and employability skills. Enroll today to be a part of a center of excellence.
Born a man, the society bestows tough responsibilities upon you.
Lazima uwe mtu wa bidii. Ukija kuoa lazima uwe ni provider.
If you're not able to provide, that's a challenge. It takes a toll on a man.
It takes someone who is strong enough to face it.
This is Born a Man.
Hapa kazi tu inaendelea kuwasaka na kuwatambua wale ambao wanafanya kazi extraordinary na zile kazi za kujituma.
Biashara yote unaambiangwa, as long as you have a plan, you can do it. Our service is about to pressure the customer.
Mpenzi mtazamaji, hii ni hapa kazi tu.
Welcome back to Lookupbusiness. Let's then get into the conversation that is really important at this time when we are talking about Kenyan matters. Now, you do know that the country is currently undergoing a drought and a famine scenario where 23 counties are facing acute food shortage. That is close to nothing. The government has responded by, number one, intensifying the relief food distribution programs, and number two, in as much as some people have called it controversial, accepting genetically modified crops into the country. They did begin with maize and then say they're going to continue then looking into other areas to see how they can mitigate this particular area of climate change and trying to thrive within it. Now, if you look at some of the UN goals, SDG goals, by 2030, they're saying we should be fighting hunger by 2030, that no human being should be sleeping hungry by 2030. So you're wondering, how far are we from that? Now, right here on Lookupbusiness then, we're wondering, are there businesses within this conversation of climate change? Can we innovate within climate change? And that's why we do have KCIC with us today. That is the Kenya Climate Innovation Center. And we do have Felix Moniki with us. Felix, how are you doing, sir?
Thank you very much for inviting me, Simba.
Happy to have you around.
Thank you.
Let me begin from this very noble side, if you may allow me. The Kenya Climate Innovation Center. Where do you find yourself in this entire conversation of drought and famine within the country?
Well, I would say that I don't want to say that we are so much in the middle of it, but yes, we are one of the key, institutions that actually is supporting, Kenyans to be able to innovate around, adverse effects of climate change. And so, for the last 10 years, we have done quite a lot. And what I would say at this point in time, climate change or the issue of drought is not a one-man, solution. It's not a government-only solution. It's not a private sector solution. I think all of us, we have to really put our hands together and look at what needs to be done, both short-term and long-term, to be able to really support our people to come out of the crisis that we're in right now.
Pretty much. Yeah. So, for someone who wants to understand who KCIC is, but when you look at the activities that you're into, you would place them at different categories. But overall then, in this conversation for climate, who is KCIC?
Well, perhaps by way of introduction, Kenya Climate Innovation Center, we are just a 10-year-old, call ourselves, 10-year-old baby, yes, who has been in this sector trying to really promote innovations in the arena of climate change.
Yes.
And when we talk about climate change, we're looking at the sectors that really, contribute to, emission of, CO2 gases into the atmosphere. And so when you look at our portfolio, we're looking at about 5 sectors, essentially. One is the renewable energy and energy efficiency, which is a major contributor when you look at it in terms of what people are using, the rural areas, and sometimes even in the urban areas. Second is about the agribusiness sector, which we look at it from, increase of food production. So we look at innovations which really increase food production in the country.
Yes.
Number 3 is about commercial forestry. That really directs, there is a direct correlation between, forestry in the country and the effects of climate change. People cutting trees to be able to get firewood for cooking. That's one of the key areas that we are focusing. And finally, there's the issue of water. Water being a public, utility. Well, people will feel that I need to get water because the government, must be able to provide water. And the final sector that we are in is about waste management.
Yes.
Right now, waste management is a key contributor of greenhouse gas emissions. So it's one of the areas that we are telling Kenyans, hey, wait, we cannot be able to live with this problem. Why don't we innovate around it? We are here to support you in terms of streamlining your businesses and financing and trying to connect you with other ecosystem stakeholders who can be able to really take these private sector-based innovations to a higher level in terms of scalability.
Pretty much.
Absolutely.
We're going to talk about which particular businesses that catch your interest as KCIC. But let me take you back to 10 years ago when you introduced yourself in the market and you said, guys, for us, we're going to promote businesses that are trying to innovate within this conversation of climate change. Will you talk to me about your journey? Because someone would like to think that this conversation of climate change is alien. It's like it's not been stressed upon enough. Or generally, as an economy, we haven't really got to that level where we're saying, let's give this conversation precedence. Would you talk to me about your journey? Would you say that indeed climate conversations or climate business within the country is an area the majority of Kenyans are interested in?
Well, first and foremost is going to recognize that, well, we have made a couple of strides, you know, as a country. And even as a continent in Africa, because initially even financing climate tech-related, you know, innovations became a major problem to the commercial banks. And so it has been a journey whereby the government, you know, and to put in place a mechanism in terms of policies and bills to be able to, you know, to really focus on what we do against a couple of issues. And one of the issues that people are really talking about when they talk about climate change is about drought. Which in Kenya really happens quite periodically because of changing weather patterns. Yes. And of course, in 2012, what happened, the World Bank, you know, designed a program of putting up climate innovation centers in a number of African countries, but also Caribbean and also, you know, in America. And so, in Southern America, so to speak. And so KCAC was born out of that initiative whereby we had the World Bank coming to say, guys, we want to support you guys to really tap into the innovations on the climate tech space. Yes. And be able to finance them and scale them to a place whereby, you know, even the local masses can be able to uptake some of these solutions and be able to either mitigate or adapt to the effects of climate change. Yes. And so the first phase is we supported 108 enterprises. Amazingly, most of them they are from renewable energy, because when you look at around 2020 thereabout, there was a heavy focus about renewable energy, about solar, about biogas, about, you know, how can we be able to use some of these resources that we have, you know, to really support even the rural-based populations to be able to really look at renewable energy sources. And so at that point in time, you know, KCC was born. And I think it became a major driver in terms of advocating about issues touching on climate change innovations. And I think our work also made us to get attention from a number of guys who really came and told us, you know, we want even to learn a couple of innovation programs on climate tech space, you know, in Africa. And so there's one time we were, you know, doing programs in 10 African countries, a program called Climate Launchpad, looking at, you know, ideation companies, people who have ideas. What are you thinking at the corner of your home in terms of issues that touch on climate change issues? And so that is how KCC evolved. Of course, the second phase of KCC, which took place from 2016 to 2020, we supported 300 businesses in Kenya. Yes. Just to scale up, you know, what we're doing. And of course, through the courtesy support of Danish Embassy and the European Union, we had KCC 3.0. As we are talking right now, we are supporting this year 1,605 businesses in Kenya.
That's huge, Felix.
Absolutely.
That's huge.
Yes.
And that's why the conversation then begins. Yeah. I mean, as an organization that has got the backing of institutions that are also very critical about this particular area of climate change, talk to me, as KCIC, what is this journey that you are walking with this business? And I'd like to think the majority of these businesses are small businesses. What is this journey like that you're walking with these businesses that are trying to innovate within climate change? And what qualifies a business for your support as a KCIC?
So thanks, Simba. So we have a couple of programs in KCAC, and perhaps maybe allow me to touch on a couple of them so that, you know, we can be able to understand. So number one, the biggest program that we have is a program called Agribiz, you know, that is targeting women and youth in agriculture. And the reason as to why we thought about our program and then we got support from European Union and Danish Embassy is because, you know, food is a critical factor in Kenya today. Whether you want to look at it from the lens of the prices of food, or you want to look at it from the lens of, you know, lack of rains, or food is a critical element. And so we cannot allow the hood men and women of this country to be the ones who are producing food. Indeed. We have to find a way of enticing young people to be able to use climate smart initiatives to be able to produce food. And that's why we're focusing on production and consumption in terms of how can people use climate tech innovations to be able to really enhance food production in the country. That program is worth 2.1 billion. The program that is supporting the 1,605 businesses in the country. Then we have a program that's funded by NIDA that is focusing on green businesses. This program is supposed to support 300 companies in the next 5 years, looking at innovations in those 5 sectors that I mentioned. And when we talk about, you know, when you look at the businesses that we support, we talk about some of them from ideation. So you have an idea, but you have gone out of your way to be able to make at least something you know, because we can't be able to believe on what is in your mind. You have to do something on the ground, do a prototype. Let's see something that resonates, you know, well, because the only way we can be able to support our business is when we see something that is happening on the ground. Then we come and pick you there, and we support you in terms of product development, we support you in terms of, you know, market access, we support you in terms of access to finance. It's also good to mention that in terms of access to finance, we have a grant facility, which is up to $50,000, and also we have a commercial facility, which is also up to $50,000 in the Danish, you know, funding program.
Yes.
So our work is to ensure that these technologies which are coming, either they are mitigative in nature or they're adaptive in nature to the effects of climate change, we are able to nurture them. When you talk about incubation, you take an idea, incubate it, support it, put governance issues there, put issues touching on business advisory, put issues touching on market, you know, ensure that this business in 1 year's time, we have been able to put in place and streamline the operations of that company, such that when these guys go to private funders, such, you know, like microfinance institutions or banks, they are able to really show traction and get financing from, you know. So our work is to take these small businesses, call them early stage companies, so to speak, which most funders, commercial funders, will never look at because they don't have cash flows.
Yes.
They're just ideation companies,
Yes.
maybe with a prototype. They have no cash, you know, they have no, you know, sales to speak.
Or even management in place.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
it's just a one-man show.
Yes.
Maybe it's you and your wife, or even you alone, if at all you're a student or whatever it is that, you know, it's a one-man show, most of the early stage companies. And we support them through a process of incubation. And that talks about business advisory, talks about access to finance, and we talk about risk finance, because not so many people want to really put their money there.
Yes.
And remember, these guys, in 1 or 2 years' time, the possibility for them to go down is high. So they need someone to handhold them, to be able to incubate them the way you just take a small baby of a year or less, or 2 months, and hold them properly till they reach a place whereby they can become self-sustaining, or they can be able to do things for themselves.
Yes.
So that is the work of KCAC, incubation and acceleration. Ours is to incubate businesses, early-stage companies, and support them to become scalable entities which offer solutions to Kenyans in the area of climate change.
That's it.
Yeah.
Another reason why majority of the efforts that local businesses are trying to make when it comes to mitigating issues on climate change, just like you've said, it's market access, where you find good ideas on the ground and then proper innovations in this conversation for climate change, but then the market becomes a challenge, which is why I wanted to ask you this question, Felix. When I hear you speak, I hear you mention the Danish government, the UN as well, backing you in this initiative that KCIC is trying to push into the economy. Talk to me about local conversations. Cracking this market aspect, how have you been able to do it? And why is the government, in terms of proper partnerships for you, what has the government done to you as KCIC? You look at it and say, well, you see, the government is right within this conversation, especially when we're talking about KCIC.
Well, we have very, very strong conversations with government. Yes. So far, for us 10 years, we have actually pushed a lot of the legislative agenda that is actually affecting, you know, the performance of these early stage companies.
Yes.
But I think there's much more that needs to be done, because let me tell you, we are churning out, you know, 20, 30,000, 50,000 students every year. And the issue of job creation is a major problem in this country.
It is.
And I think for me, there is so much that the government can be able to do, and there's so much that the private sector can be able to do. All of us put together and joining our hands, I think we can be able to do quite a lot. Number one, when I look at the early stage companies that we support, we are talking about most of these, they have no formal structure. They are not registered. And so KCAC, when you look at some of our budgets, we are spending a lot of money in terms of supporting these companies to become registered.
And formalized from that perspective.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. And that's number one. So we have partnered with a couple of county governments to be able to really ease up that process.
The process of registering these companies.
Absolutely.
In a critical area like climate, isn't it?
Absolutely. And remember, you know, you cannot talk about financing some of these companies if at all they're not streamlined. You can't talk about these guys going to the market if at all there is no formal structure of these companies. So that's where we start. And then you talk about, you know, market access. When these companies have a product, one of the key things we realize is that we have to really intentionally do market activation and support to these companies. So you realize that a big chunk of our budget that we have is about, can we take these guys to where the public is?
Yeah.
Can we literally go to markets that are within Nairobi? Can we go to markets within Mombasa? Can we go to markets within the counties? And so you realize that, you know, like for example, if you look at some of the, you know, approvals that perhaps we're having, today, is about how can we take 300, 200 companies to various exhibitions that we have all over the country to be able to tell Kenyans, you know, we have these innovations, we have these solutions to your problems. and also support them in terms of how do you structure the conversations with the would-be customers,
Yes.
and whether to B2C or B2B, conversations. So we have done quite a lot, and I think our work is a little bit, going forward is much more defined in terms of, as we tell people to innovate around issues of climate change, how is the absorption of these innovations? There's a major barrier in terms of market access. How do we come on board and sensitize, outreach, do market outreaches, and tell people we have this. There's a company that is producing these climate smart agriculture, products. How can we literally take these products and take them to far places of Meru, Mombasa, Kisumu, and tell guys, we have these products, or these companies are producing these products. And I think that's also where the government comes. It needs to realize that Kenyans have solutions to issues of touching on climate change. The problem perhaps is about taking those products to the people who need them.
That's it. Pretty much. But I'm going to ask you this one as well, because just before we started, I did ask you where your offices are. I realized that you're located at Strathmore University at the center of minds. We're trying to come up with a solution to the social challenges that are affecting the country. And climate is a big social challenge that are affecting this country. Could you tell me, when it comes to onboarding students who like to think right within this conversation, and I've got bright minds from university, how has their response been? Would you tell me about the ratio of the businesses that you're supporting right now? A majority of them student-backed, or these are businesses that any other person can approach KCIC?
So, well, we have also run, it's also going to mention that we have run a couple of programs with a number of universities in this country, to support young people. So 2-3 months ago, we ran a program called Climate Tech, supported by Switzerland Embassy. And then the response was quite huge. I mean, you look at the young people in terms of what they're thinking, from the area of cooking, from the area of lighting. We have a young person who came up with the idea of producing power from, the friction between a moving vehicle and the road.
Yes.
The innovations are quite immense. So Climate Launchpad program, which is an annual program for KCAC, also cutting across a number of African countries, is I would say 90% is so much of young people based. And so we have also collaborations with Strathmore University in terms of them coming to support, the enterprises that we are supporting. We have guys coming for internship to be able to offer their expertise. Even from a master's level, we have a couple of guys whom we have connected with a number of companies to provide the expertise. And so for me, there's still a huge gap that needs to be filled in terms of how do we sensitize the young people to be able to innovate around issues touching on climate change. Because truth be told, I will not say it's a new area, but in terms of the commercialization of climate tech ideas and people looking at that area as an area I can be able to invest and put my money in, or perhaps even develop my career in. I would say the last 5 years, people have started looking at it from an area I should be able even to invest my career into. So I would say that quite a number of things are happening. Days are gone when people just do geography and then people think it's about, issues of looking at rain for patterns and all those kind of things. You can do so much of business in the area of climate change, from a business perspective, from a social perspective. That's why we have social enterprises that are doing a lot of work, but they have a profit element into it. So for me there's a big role that the youths of this country should be able to play. But of course now the challenge is most young people tell you that there's no money, there's no opportunities. And so that's why ecosystem stakeholders, not only KCC, but also government, but also other ecosystem stakeholders in the incubation and financing space, targeting on women, should be able to come together and create opportunities and make them aware. I was telling some of you the other day that, we have a couple of programs even done by government and a number of donors, but the problem is most young people, and including old people, they don't know that those programs exist, and they are multi-billion dollar programs. So a matter of work and money needs to go in terms of creating awareness of these opportunities for the young people of this country.
Pretty much. All right, Felix, I'm getting told we have 2 minutes in this conversation, and I want to combine my last 2 questions together, and you take a minute or so to respond to that. Capital or finance has been identified as the top challenge, especially when it comes to running or supporting of small businesses. I know you didn't mention about the commercial loan that you do offer through KCIC. For somebody listening to you, would you say that our challenge is money, and how does somebody qualify for commercial loan from KCIC? I know they're listening and they're like, well, if I've got a business model that is working and I've been selling within climate innovation, I can walk to KCIC and that will give me that loan. How does somebody get to qualify? And lastly now, paint for me a picture of where you see KCIC. You've been in the market for 10 years. Good. paint for me a picture where you see yourselves in the next 10 years again. What would you be like in the next 10 years, especially in this conversation for climate, when we do know the UN SDG goal is to solve this by 2030, which is just 7 years to come?
Yeah, so allow me to start with the last question. Number one is that the last 2 years we devolved KCC to 8 counties, and those 8 regional centers, they are focusing on for 7 counties. So one of the key things we are doing is how can we take the services of KCC closer to mashinani. And so our program, our thoughts as of this now is to strategically evolve KCC into a company that can be able to, or an organization that can be able to really go into 20, 30 counties to be able to really scout those innovations on climate change and support them there. Because, well, there are not so many people who can be able to come to Nairobi because of perhaps issues touching on capital or money. So that's number one. And also one of the other element in that strategic document is as going regional. We have a couple of conversations with so many donors to be able to really replicate. We have done it in Nigeria. I mean, Nigeria CAC is a kid of KCAC. And ours is, can we be able to replicate this and have even local ownership in those countries? Because I think we have done quite a lot and there's a lot of impact that we have been able to create in the last 10 years. The first question, I mean, finance to climate tech enterprises is I would say, is a challenge in the country. And not only in Kenya, but also in Africa. But I think time has come also for the commercial banks and MFIs and SACCOs to be able to look at this. If the Western governments right now and financial institutions, they are looking at how can we be able to really innovatively finance climate tech, innovations. And I think, for example, borrowing from Israel, I look at them, they put millions of dollars every year into the innovation space, and they reap so much in terms of, if you are selling that company to foreign-owned company, 10% it belongs to the government, and that table they're able to generate revenue. Now, back in Kenya, of course, in KCC, we have very innovative financing. We're talking about a grant of $50,000. We're talking about an RBF resort-based financing, whereby we are giving it at 6%. But that's not enough in the market. Yes. Because, believe you me, the applications, I'm launching a call for applications for the 2 programs end of this month. To tell Kenyans, we have this call for applications. Please put in your application for consideration. But when you look at one point in time, we got 10,000 applications in one county.
That's a lot.
Now, we don't have those resources to be able to support. And that's what I'm saying. For us, is the support is there, but it's not enough. We need more actors. We need government to be able to come on board and support. You can imagine 10,000 applications from young people in one county alone. If at least half of them can be supported and we scale up those companies and make them commercially sustainable, the effect of that in that one county alone. So for me it requires innovativeness, not only just in finance, but even in terms of support. So for us we are still looking for more money to be able to support more, because the more we support, like for example, we have supported 426 companies with finance the last 2 years alone. Just a tip of the iceberg. So there's more needs to be done.
Big takeaway that it doesn't just need support from finance, it needs support from working together with these companies, because it's just the tip of the iceberg when we're talking about businesses within climate innovation. By the way, right now, if you ask any other person who's of sound mind and knowing exactly what is going on in the world, they will tell you we have to talk about climate change. Everything is, humanity is packed on climate. Felix, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Simba.
It was a pleasure hosting you.
Thank you.
And that's it. I'll see you tomorrow for another Lookupbusiness episode, taking back to the time that you join us right here on Lookuptv. That is at Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. Those messages that you've been sending to Facebook, I'm sorry I didn't have time to go over them, but guess what? I'll be sampling them and we shall be forwarding them to him so they can see exactly how they can get to respond to some of your responses and questions. Good afternoon.